In early 1939, the cold winds over Warsaw carried rumors darker than any winter. Colonel Andrzej Lewandowski stood by the Vistula River, watching ice drift downstream, his breath forming pale ghosts in the air. Reports from Berlin spoke of Hitler's armies massing near the frontier. Europe seemed paralyzed, France uncertain, Britain ambiguous, yet Poland, proud and unyielding, prepared to fight if it must. In smoky military offices, Lewandowski pored over maps, the borders of his homeland outlined in trembling pen strokes. "They won't let him do it again," his adjutant whispered, more in prayer than conviction. Lewandowski nodded, but said nothing. Every veteran of 1920 knew what German ambition could bring. As radios crackled with news from London, the colonel felt both fear and fragile hope that Europe's democracies might finally awaken to the danger spreading from the Reich.
On March 31, 1939, the world shifted. In London, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain addressed Parliament, his voice steadier than his nerves. Britain, he declared, would guarantee Poland's independence. In Warsaw, the announcement reached the Ministry of War. Officers erupted in cautious applause. Cigarette smoke curled toward chandeliers as disbelief turned briefly to joy. For Lewandowski, stationed near Liganov, the words felt unreal, like a reprieve from doom. "Britain stands with us," a young lieutenant exclaimed. "Then we are safe." But Lewandowski's eyes narrowed. He remembered Czechoslovakia, sacrificed at Munich just months before. Still, as church bells rang across Krakow and the Union Jack flew beside the white and red flag in diplomatic quarters, something like pride returned to the Polish heart. For one fragile evening, hope eclipsed fear, and the colonel dared to believe that honor had not yet perished from the world.
Weeks passed, and the corridors of Warsaw's general staff echoed with debates once whispered in fear. Would Britain and France truly march east if Poland was attacked? Lewandowski walked those halls, his boots striking marble polished by generations of officers. On his desk lay telegrams from London and Paris, formal promises, vague coordination plans, no troops. "We must trust our allies," General Rid Smigley insisted during a council meeting. But in the colonel's heart, trust faltered. Beyond the walls, ration drills intensified. School children practiced air defense under watchful teachers. The air smelled of coal smoke and anticipation. Late one night, gazing at the flickering map of Europe, Lewandowski whispered, "Words mean little until the guns answer." Outside, the city of Warsaw glittered as if unaware it was dancing on a volcano's edge, unaware of the storm to come.
Through spring and early summer, Colonel Lewandowski commanded maneuvers near Lodz. Soldiers drilled along muddy fields, rifles gleaming beneath pale Polish skies. Each day the radio hummed with rumors, German ultimatums, diplomatic notes, the endless dance of delay. Lewandowski's men were brave but ill-equipped. Their tanks were relics compared to the panzers being forged west of the Oder. "We will fight with what we have," he told his sergeant, trying to sound certain. In July, a British military mission arrived, courteous officers in tailored uniforms studying defenses with quiet unease. They smiled, but spoke little of tangible aid. When they departed, Lewandowski watched their car vanish down the road, clouds gathering over the plain. He knew then that alliances were promises painted on fragile parchment, and the ink was already running beneath the rain. By August, the air itself seemed to vibrate with tension. German radio broadcasts grew more belligerent, demanding Danzig's return. On August 25th, Britain signed a formal military alliance with Poland. Fireworks lit the night above Warsaw, but deep down, officers like Lewandowski sensed the illusion. "If war comes," whispered his adjutant, "they'll bomb us first." Lewandowski nodded grimly. Each day, more troops mobilized, more families evacuated. The colonel's wife packed a single suitcase and kissed him farewell at Warsaw Gdanska station, her eyes shining with unspoken dread. "You have your duty," she said softly.
He watched the train pull away, its whistle echoing through the city, a sound that would remain with him when the sky itself began to burn.
At dawn on September 1st, 1939, Lewandowski was awakened by thunder that was not of storms. The Luftwaffe had come. Over the plains near Wellen, bombs shattered hospitals and homes. Radios screamed, telephones died, the sky turned black with fire. Lewandowski's regiment scrambled to counterattack, horses scattering under the roar of armored columns. "Hold the road to Piotrków," he shouted over the din. Yet how could courage halt steel? For 2 desperate days his men fought and fell. Smoke hung over fields like mourning veils. When word came that Britain and France had declared war on Germany, a cheer erupted in the trenches, but no foreign divisions arrived. "They promised," one soldier murmured, exhausted and bleeding. Lewandowski looked west, toward distant friends who remained invisible beyond the horizon.
By mid-September, Warsaw was encircled. The city roared with fire and courage. Lewandowski, reassigned to the Defense Command, watched as civilians dug trenches beside soldiers. The air defense sirens wailed daily. Children carried buckets as artillery thundered from the outskirts. When he visited the city center, he found entire streets reduced to ash. Yet morale endured. "They cannot break us," said a nurse tending the wounded in a basement ward. On September 17th, new horror arrived. From the east. Soviet troops crossed the border. The dreams of Allied salvation dissolved instantly. That night, amid the flicker of burning rooftops, Lewandowski wrote one last note to his superiors. "We fought, believing the world would keep its word. History will judge the silence." With surrender inevitable, Lewandowski ordered his remaining men to disband. He was captured days later near Modlin Fortress, his uniform torn, his eyes hollow but proud. German officers offered him parole if he swore obedience. He refused. "I already swore," he said quietly. In the POW column marching west, he saw the broken remnants of Poland's army farmers, teachers, cadets, all stripped of command. Behind them, smoke pillars marked where Warsaw once stood free. At a roadside rest, a younger soldier whispered, "Sir, do you think Britain will come?" Lewandowski hesitated. "They already have," he said, in words. He gazed at the western sky, knowing that from those islands across the sea a new war had begun. But for Poland, the cost of honor was already paid in full. Autumn settled over a conquered Poland, but the echoes of its defense stirred the conscience of Europe. In London, Churchill thundered that the Polish struggle must not be forgotten. British factories roared to life. Recruitment posters filled the streets. Yet for men like Lewandowski, imprisoned in an offlog in Germany, the rhetoric came too late. He spent long nights listening to distant artillery, imagining Allied forces gathering. Letters arrived smuggled from neutral nations, carrying news of exiled governments forming in France and London. Hope flickered again, fragile and defiant. When he closed his eyes, he still saw Warsaw's skyline, burning yet unbowed. "If they remember us," he whispered into the cold barracks air, "then perhaps we have not fallen in vain." Years later, those who survived remembered the spring of 1939 as both a promise and a warning. Colonel Lewandowski, freed after the war, stood once more beside the Vistula, older, quieter, bearing invisible scars. He recalled the March day when Britain's pledge had filled Poland's hearts with hope, and how that hope had been forged into sacrifice. Europe lay changed beyond recognition. Warsaw rose anew from its ashes. Yet in the colonel's eyes burned an eternal question. What is the worth of a guarantee if not honored by action?
As sunset gilded the rebuilt city, he murmured to the river, "We believed words could save us." The water carried his voice toward the west, whispering through time the lesson bought by a nation's blood.